Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Book Talk with Cara. Today, it is so much fun to have my friend Jayna Breigh here because we are going to talk about her brand new book, Appearance of Impropriety. And y'all, I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it so much, I endorsed it. But before we dive into talking about it, Jayna, do you want to just update everybody on what you've been up to since the last time we talked?
So the last time we talked, it was for the debut of my novel, my very first novel, The Hunted Heir, which did very well. Not John Grisham levels of well, but it did well. And I currently have releasing after An Appearance of Impropriety a Christmas novella in October with Kriegel. And I know
Fun.
you have done one of those, one of the sort of trilogies, and mine is with Sarah Haymaker and Kimberly Woodhouse, and it
Oh, fun.
the suspense, Christmassy suspense.
Oh, that's so much fun. And it's so fun to get to write with other people because writing is so solitary most of the time. So what's it been like working with Sarah and with Kimberly? Because they're two wonderful people.
Well, Kimberly, as I like to say, plucked me from obscurity and platformed me. So she is like a fairy godmother, a mentor, and so she has helped me all along the way. I don't know much about Sarah. The way they did it this time is we just all worked in our own little writing caves, and they're just compiling it as one book. So it's not our stories do not flow together, but they have a common theme, which I can't give away. You know how that is. I can't give it away
Yeah.
yet. Yeah. So we have a common theme, and it's based on a Christmas Carol, but each of us wrote our own thing. So mine is a romantic legal drama, but Sarah writes more sort of straight Christian suspense and contemporary
Mhm.
suspense. So each one's going to be kind of different.
Oh, that's fun. And it is different from mine where we were it was the We Three Kings, and we each had to have a different piece of what the kings brought. And then it was a family that was woven together, and they were historical, and we each had
Ah,
our own assigned time period. And so it was just much more coordinated and stuff. So it's always interesting to see how those all come together. But this book, The Appearance of Impropriety, comes out end of January 2026. And tell us a little bit about this story and how you came up with the original idea for it.
the interesting thing is, so I do a lot of writing on my iPhone with my little thumbs, and I look back
You
on
and Christy Cameron. I don't know how you do it.
and when I'm walking in the doctor's office. So I look back on my phone, and this story first came into existence back in 2016. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so I have been working on it for a very, very long time. And the genesis of the story, interestingly, happens in the very first chapter. There is someone screams out of their car window at my heroine in the novel. And that is based on something that happened to a real person that I know and that I love who shared the story with me. And that person just laughed the whole thing off. They thought it was the weirdest thing they'd ever heard of. And there's another story in the book. My character Mahalia has a grandmother who says something to her that's slightly sort of off-putting, and that is something that happened again to a good friend of mine from law school. That her grandmother said something to her, and those two stories of those words spoken by other people that caused pain
Mm.
birthed the character of Mahalia.
Oh my gosh. And that's so much of the writing life is we're taking this and we're taking that and we're pulling them together. And that's how a character or a story will um, often get birth for me. And so it sounds like for you, this one came from character first.
All of my books come from character first because I am a super bad plotter. So, but I always see the characters in my mind and I know who they're going to be and what they're going to say and what situations they're going to be in. And that's where my inspiration comes from. I want these characters to have a story. So I've got the full cast of characters, but then I struggle with coming up what they're going to do on a day-to-day basis in the book.
Well, and you put her through her paces. I mean, she is dealing with all kinds of situations. And what's kind of fun is you have her as a judge.
Yes.
And so that's, in legal suspense, it's not unheard of, but it's kind of an unusual job to put the main character in. And then you've got this concept of impropriety, which when we're dealing with the legal world, that is a big deal, and especially judicial impropriety.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you? And especially in like the day and age we're living in, do you think it's something that we really need to be concerned about?
Uh, so taking it back just one step, you and I both know as attorneys that judges and lawyers often work together on committees. and do community service projects together. And I worked on a probate and estate committee for the State Bar of California, and there were judges on that committee. And on the committee work, we called the judges by the first name. Then when we were before them, we called them Judge so and so. So that's what made me start thinking about it, because I don't think the regular public realizes that you need the judiciary and lawyers working together to craft laws, to fix bad legislation, to come up with the procedures and protocols for how the courtroom and the court system works. So I thought to myself, what would happen if feelings developed? people,
Yeah.
people caught feelings. And I think of another case that I had. It was a trial that I had out in Palm Springs. And the judge was the next door neighbor for our opposing counsel. And so and Palm Springs is a very small town. It really is. In the movies and everything, it seems super glamorous. It is, but it's like 5 square blocks. And so we really had to wrestle with, the judge offered to recuse himself, and we had to think about, that is the kind of thing that could rise to an appearance of impropriety if you're fighting in the daytime in front of someone, and then you're going home and you're kind of over the fence. You can't address the elephant in the room, which is your neighbors, but you're on this case. So it comes up, and it's important because we want people to have faith in the judiciary. So that's a long answer, but there it is.
Yeah, but and that makes it really relatable, because sometimes I think people are like, "Oh, the law is so it's a system that I hope I never have to actually interact with." And yet then we see it on TV or we see it in movies, and people think it's like this, it's always all this conflict, and it is. I mean, the legal system is by design about conflict, but it's also real people in real life
Yeah.
situations, and they're people you see across the street and they go to church with you. And so that you create these situations where then, okay, so how am I going to behave? What am I going to do? And so it creates these conflicts that
Yeah.
just are inherent to being human and being in a community. So who decides what's impropriety?
Well, the interesting thing about impropriety, and my book is called an Appearance of Impropriety, is because something doesn't actually even have to be technically inappropriate.
Yeah.
It can lead to an appearance. And again, the thing with the neighbors was a really good situation. There are people who could have thought, gosh, that's kind of weird that the neighbor is right next door picking up the mail while the opposing counsel's on vacation, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what is an appearance of impropriety really is judged from the outside. Would it lead the common sort of person to believe, this judge might not be impartial or be fair? And there can't be an actual standard, because there's so many different situations. I mean, there's 1,000 different situations that it could rise to. So
Yeah, well, in the law, we've got ethics that we have to follow, and then there's the appearance, the optics of the situation. And so, how does, you've got this situation where it's kind of, is it diverging? Is there an issue? And then there's romance.
yes, yes. Well, and that was a tightrope, because in romance, obviously, you want the romance to be building in your story. But she's a judge, she's an attorney. I gotta keep them apart. So there's a lot of work making that work.
Yeah, yeah. And that's part of what I thought made the book fun and fresh, because one of the things that sometimes can bug me about romantic suspense is you'll have these characters where I'm like, that's a conflict. They cannot actively be pursuing the romance in the middle of this situation, because either they're a client or he's investigating, or there's this relationship, there's something going on. I'm like, it's a conflict. They cannot actively be pursuing a relationship. And so I thought you handled that well, because it's the kind of thing that some people would be throwing the book across the room if it wasn't handled in the right way.
Well, so far, thankfully, nobody has said they've thrown the book. And the fact that you didn't throw the book means a great deal to me.
Yeah. So was there a particular scene that you wrote where you're like, this idea of there's the spirit and
Hmm.
there's the letter of the law where they like collided?
Yes, and you had asked me that in advance, and I wrote down on my notes what I thought that was, because I wanted to make sure that I got that. Okay, yes. So as you know, there's a scene in an elevator, and I don't want to give too much of that scene away.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
is the midpoint of the book. Um, but let's just say this: the longer you have to spend with somebody you're not supposed to be spending time with, and then if people find out that you spent a long period of time with somebody you're not supposed to be spending time with in that kind of way, that would definitely create an appearance of impropriety.
Yes, and I know what scene you're talking about, but you hit it well.
Yeah,
And it's like right at that 50% point where you know it's a pivotal, something's
yeah,
going to come of this.
yeah.
And so you've got this, one of the things that's great about your writing is because you were a practicing attorney. You have done this, you have lived this. How do you think that contributes to the book and the like the pacing of it?
Oh, so I had the most fun writing the courtroom scenes at the end of the book because I was just getting into the fine details of cross examination and direct examination and objections. And at some point, one of my editors said, well, you say objection, and often you'll say hearsay, relevance, compound. And I just said objection. And my editor's like, wait, they didn't say what the objection was. Well, it's because it was not a valid objection. They were just trying to throw off the protagonist's rhythm by just throwing an objection into the air because the judge will just say, move along. So I had to explain to them that, yeah, sometimes a counsel will just stand up and object. It's just not going well. It seems well.
Exactly. And we don't always have those long drawn out explanations or this back
Exactly.
and forth about it. It's just like, no, it's kind of like when you call a timeout, a 30-second timeout, just to like, we gotta interrupt the what's happening on the court.
That's right.
I love that. So when you think about the that getting it right, though, sometimes you have to sacrifice that
Sure,
for
sure,
it for the story, where
sure.
you're like, we know so much. And even as someone who's practiced up until just a couple of years ago, when I'm writing those courtroom scenes, or I'm still doing tons of research to make sure it's right. At what point did you just have to go, okay, enough?
Mhm,
Enough
mhm,
is enough.
mhm.
Now I'm getting too into the weeds, and it's going to slow down the story.
Well, interestingly, so the whole city of Los Angeles is it's very important to me and my books because that's where I practice. So I try to make it a character in the books as well. But I had to super fudge what the downtown Los Angeles courthouse, the configuration of it to fit the story. So I'm making up rooms in the courthouse. I'm making up elevator locations in the courthouse. I'm making up staircase locations in the courthouse. And I felt so badly about it because that's where I did the bulk of my practice, but I needed the location to serve the story. So I put a note at the end because I didn't want any lawyers who practice in Los Angeles coming to me saying, this courthouse doesn't look anything like this. The other thing is I made up another completely fictional courthouse for a scene at the end that's on the historical registry and all this kind of stuff. It's completely fictional. And I had to say that too, because somebody's going to come and say, wait a minute. So these courthouses don't even exist. Did you even practice law in Los Angeles? So, um,
And you're like, yes, yes, I did. But sometimes the story matters more.
yeah, so that's not exactly what you asked, but it really was a huge element, two huge elements in the
Yeah.
story that anybody who practiced law in Los Angeles will know this is not right.
Well, and that's the thing that as a reader, it will stop me dead in my tracks.
Yeah,
And so knowing, that you're like, okay, I can go to the author note. And I love author notes for that because
oh
I often want to know, is this person real? Or, especially when someone's created a world so effectively, I want to be able to peel it back and be like, okay, what's real, what's not.
yeah.
And so being able to identify that is so much fun, so much fun. Was there a moment when you were writing this story where you were just like, this one's going to kill me?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So, like I said, this story has been around for 10 years and it started off as a straight romance. And then I amped up the courtroom suspense. But when I got back my first round of developmental edits, I suffered from the saggy middle, womp, 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 womp. And the suspense and the tension just wasn't high enough to warrant the title of sort of romantic thriller, romantic legal drama. And so this is giving away some of the guts of writing. I had to overlay, I created all of the text messages, all of the interchanges, all of the Facebook messages, and all of the behind the scenes skullduggery was created after the book was written on my developmental edits. And I went back through and I thought, okay, I want this to be a story where text messages and fake pictures and um, Facebook post draw it all together. But I created that out of nowhere after the book was completely written.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. And sometimes it really is at that stage where you're like, oh, this is what was missing.
Yeah.
And that's often when I'll send it to my editor and I'll be like, okay, I have a feeling you're going to say X, but I don't know what to do. I'm
Uh,
kind of stuck. So I'm relying on you to help me figure out what that magic next thing could be because I'm stuck. This is as good as I can get it at this stage. And then that's when the magic starts happening, where you're like, okay, now this will add this, and then figuring out what those added layers can be. So there's often a cost of doing the right thing. Is that one of the themes that you are hoping readers will take away from this book, or what are you really hoping like the takeaway is?
My big takeaway is related to that, but in a different way. The biggest thing I wanted to point out in my book is that don't judge a book by its cover. And my characters both see themselves one way, feel judged by the outside world, and they have to come to terms with who they are. And you sort of have to cast off the perceptions that people have of you. You have to embrace, because I have a faith element, both characters have to embrace ultimately who God would want them to be. And that's not determined by how the outside world views you. If they view you as somebody who's, trailer park trash because you grew up poor and you deal with classism, if within your own community you deal with something like colorism or stigma, if you deal with perceptions, you're college educated, you're not college educated. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
isms and conflicts that all kinds of people, every race, nationality, face here, even in America, even though we're more of a classless society than some other countries. But I wanted to address that.
I love that. Yeah, because we all have identity issues, and it's just how willing are we to do the work to deal with it and understand who are we? Who
Yeah.
are we actually? And so for book clubs, is there a single question that you're really hoping
Oh,
or that
yeah.
you would love to be a fly on the wall and listen to the book club talk about with an
Well,
appearance of impropriety?
I'm glad you asked. I had to write down because I don't have it in my brain, but it's when have you been judged because of something beyond your control?
Mm,
And for right now, for example, I am a caretaker for a senior citizen. And senior citizens, for example, get judged. They're moving slowly. They're not thinking as fast. And young people are bustling by them. Why isn't that person? Why are they in this lane driving? Why are they? So class, ageism, or gender related issues. If you're a woman, if you're a man, and people treating you differently because of the skin that God has assigned to you. So,
yeah. Yeah. No, that would be fascinating to see how people pulled it out and how willing they are to be authentic and vulnerable in that moment. And so as we get ready to wrap up, part of my endorsement was an appearance of impropriety is filled with characters I cared about who were placed in challenging situations that compelled me to keep reading long into the night. And it is definitely one of those books that pulls you in, and the characters are just fantastic. So, what are three words that you have for like this book's vibe?
so I wrote down that the vibe is romantic legal drama because it actually, because well, and it's interesting. Yes, that is my tagline, but I'm always keeping that at the forefront of my brain. If the romance becomes too heavy, I need to drill down on the legal part. If the legal part becomes too heavy, I need to drill down on the drama part. I really am very much wanting my book to be a balance, and I don't want people to come away feeling cheated because
Mhm.
that was just a romance, or man, that was just like reading a civil procedure textbook. So those three words actually describe what I want people to come away with when they get through.
I love that. Is there a trope that you embraced or one that you were just like, nope, I'm completely turning that one on its head?
In this book, let's see, you got such good questions. I felt I had to write them down. Um, and it was a trope I subverted. There was no real huge trope I subverted, except for having the judge be a female.
Mhm.
Several people who have commented in like on Goodreads or whatever have said, "Oh, that's sort of interesting." And I think that having a male character who his goal was to nurture teenagers also sort of subverts sort of, you would, I don't know, just from a, if you were to watch movies and see things, you would think of it being, oh, the female would be the one who had the students and was taking care of them, and the male would be the judge. So I think that's a small trope that was overturned.
I love that. And it worked so well based on how you had built the characters and who they are. If people were wondering, how would you compare if readers love fill in the blank, then they will love An Appearance of Impropriety because.
Okay, so my books, I write them like TV shows, not like books. So somebody said on Goodreads that it was like The Good Wife. And I was like, oh my gosh, why have I never
Yeah,
thought of that? Okay, The Good Wife, The Practice, the new reboot of Matlock, which I love, which is you have a blending of the personal lives of the lawyers, and then you have a legal case. So all my books are always going to have a legal case. They're always going to have the personal lives of the attorneys behind the scenes, and that really is like the TV shows that I like to watch.
yeah. And it really is how they kind of come across. And do you have a favorite line? Which is kind of
I
like
did.
asking, do you have a favorite kid?
I do have a favorite line. No, because my book. Okay, do you ever laugh at your own lines in your own books? You're like, oh,
Sometimes.
yeah. So this one has nothing to do with the plot or anything, but there's some teenagers in my book, and this is not giving away any of the plot, but they said some of the funniest things. When there's a teenager who says, Bruce, if you keep letting women into the bat cave, eventually the bad guys are going to figure out where you live. And I just love that. Every time I thought about that line, it just made me laugh.
Oh, that's so fun. And teenagers are the best.
They are.
So much fun. So, Jayna, where can people find out more about you and about your books, including The Appearance of Impropriety?
Okay, I am everywhere on the internet at JaynaBreigh. It is the only Jayna Breigh spelled that way in the world because it's a pen name. So if you type that in, you will find me. You can get The Appearance of Impropriety. It releases on the 27th at all major book retailers. It's also going to be available on Audible. So for those of you like me who like to listen to books, you can get it there too.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me today and good luck on the book. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.